Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Sister Wives with Mary Jane Kay. Today, I'll be giving my commentary on Seeking Sister Wife, Season 4, Episode 11, Brazil or Bust. The episode starts with the Merrifields in Brazil. Garrick is having trouble with saying good morning in Portuguese. It's bom dia. He says it correctly first, then he switches to bom day, and Roberta corrects him. This Garrick is not the sharpest tool in the shed. Garrick asks, is it bom, good day? Roberta looks at Garrick like she finally realizes he's got just 2 brain cells to work with, and she again tells him, bom dia. Garrick explains, this is his first morning waking up in Brazil, and it's special to wake up to his other wife, Roberta, and to have that time and closeness and intimacy again. It's very special. And Garrick hopes Roberta is feeling the same way, because Garrick really loves her. Garrick has some interesting chest hair, by the way. It's trimmed and barely there, except for a small trimmed patch between his boobies. Either shave it completely or grow it. Why leave that barely there patch? His nipples are gross too. His areolas look smaller than a penny, but he has huge nipples that look very weird. If I was him, I'd keep my shirt on. Roberta's mom is coming by today. It'll be an emotional day because they have to talk to Roberta's mom to let her know Roberta has to leave. Garrick tells Roberta, talk, ticket, and soon America? How the fuck do you have a marriage relationship with someone you have to speak to like a toddler or a mentally delayed person? He then says, welcome, Roberta, balloons? Roberta says, after being apart for so long, last night with Garrick was very special. Roberta gave Garrick a massage and things were heating up. She says, and then they became intimate in a very special way. This sister wife thing for Garrick has a lot to do with cake, and everybody knows that. Danielle knows that Garrick will be eating cake, and so does Roberta. So why is sex being intimate in a special way? Just call sex, sex. Seriously, just call it sex. Everybody knows. Why dance around it? Roberta says when they became intimate in a very special way that it had never happened before. We know that they hooked up in Mexico. Oh, I wonder what part never happened before. Maybe Garrick really went to work this time for the first time in his life ever. Roberta says it was an exchange of glances, sweet words, affection, and attention. What the fuck is this? Pride and Prejudice? Persuasion? Sense and Sensibility? Is this a fucking Jane Austen novel? I've read Jane Austen, and this sounds like a Victorian romance novel. Roberta says the intimacy was something that involved lots of love. She says she's in ecstasy right now. She got dick down and she is on a high. Basically, that's what this boils down to. Garrick is so vanilla, I wonder what his signature move is. He probably just likes a missionary position. I can't see him being too creative. When he wants to go wild, he probably switches from vanilla flavor to funfetti. At most, he probably won't go beyond the basics, in my opinion. I wonder if Garrick cried during sex. He looks like the type. Garrick and Roberta are laying in bed still, and Garrick asks, sister, maybe awake? They can't communicate in complete sentences without the Google Translator. They can use 3 or 4 word incomplete sentences communicating like toddlers. Roberta is going to check on sister. Danielle says it's her first morning waking up alone in Brazil, and Garrick and Roberta have spent the night together. Danielle felt lonely last night, sleeping alone. She feels uneasy about everything. They still have a lot to figure out. Danielle says she made it clear that Garrick and Roberta should not try for a baby in Brazil because they're dealing with a lot of life-altering things at the moment. Roberta finds Danielle up and she gets into bed with her, still unshowered from last night probably, unshowered from sleeping with Danielle's husband. So that's fun. Roberta asks Danielle if her heart is completely okay. Danielle says, yeah. She speaks in toddler speak. She says, so long apart, distance, and she starts crying. And she tells Roberta, it's hard how Garrick is sad a lot about you. Danielle says, we need to be together. It hurts the heart. Danielle is pretty anxious to sit down and talk about things. Danielle's gut is telling her right now that Roberta is not going to come to Colorado and that Roberta isn't going to get on that plane. And Danielle needs to hear from Roberta that she is. Danielle tells Roberta, ticket, book the ticket, no more separate. And Roberta tells her, no more. Danielle begs, please. Danielle now feels desperate that Roberta actually come to the U.S. When before, I feel that if Roberta didn't come, she would have seen that as a plus because then this whole charade of polygamy would be over. But I think when Garrick made it clear that he would just have a second family in Brazil with Roberta if she didn't make it over to the U.S., then Danielle realized her only option if she wants to be with Garrick and maintain her family is Roberta coming to the U.S. If I was Danielle, I'd take my kids and go, especially knowing my so-called husband is more than willing to make a second family separate from ours in Brazil and take that time away from us, especially knowing that Roberta was Garrick's priority, even to the detriment of his family with me. After all those years I dedicated to him and my family, if I was Danielle, I would go. But this is Danielle's choice, and she seems to love Garrick. I don't know if she stays for the sake of her boys or if she loves Garrick or if this is some religious thing keeping her with him. But in my opinion, Danielle definitely deserves more. Danielle and Roberta pinky swear that Roberta will come to the U.S. Roberta promises. Danielle thinks booking the ticket is one of the last hurdles, and then Bert landing in the U.S. with her feet on the ground on U.S. soil, that will be the last hurdle. Next up are the Joneses. Sidian and Ariel are just waking up. It's their last day together. It's the fourth day of the trip, and it's the last day. Ariel thinks that's probably why she doesn't want to wake up. Sidian suggests they stay asleep and pretend it's not happening. Sidian is feeling a lot of different things. He isn't feeling confusion or hesitation, but he's feeling anxiety about things maybe not going his way. Ariel feels sad Sidian is leaving, and she's ready to do any activities with Sidian today to make the most of the moment that they have, and she is ready to talk a lot. Sidian is taking Ariel snorkeling today, but he has an ulterior motive. While he is snorkeling, the resort is going to set up the proposal area. Sidian feels like this is the right moment to do this because there are many factors at play, and even though they both want to take a little more time on this, they feel that due to pressure from the outside world, it's better to go ahead with things sooner rather than later. Ariel feels like she is falling in love with Sidian. They had an intimate moment last night, and they both said they love each other. It feels like the clock is ticking so fast because she knows Sidian will be leaving in just a few hours. But Ariel has faith that this is going to be something amazing and so serious for both of them. So Ariel hopes it happens. Sidian FaceTimes with Tasha before the proposal. He's getting ready to propose. He shows Tasha the setup. Tasha is excited and hopeful. She hopes Ariel takes a leap of faith. She hopes Ariel says yes. Sidian has excitement about it, but there's also a cloud of anxiousness and nervousness all over it. Tasha tells Sidian she remembers when he got down on one knee with her, and it made her cry so hard. Tasha knows it's a little fast, but she tells Sidian he and Ariel have spent quality time doing a long-distance relationship, so it's not like there isn't a foundation there. Sidian says when he zooms out and he looks at the big picture, it all makes a lot of sense to him. Sidian says Tasha told him to bring Ariel home, and that's exactly what he intends to do. But he doesn't know if Ariel will say yes or no. Sidian leads Ariel to the proposal area. There's a path of candles and roses to a table overlooking the sunset. Sidian feels kinda not ready for this, but in a way that whenever you do anything that takes courage or makes your life better and is a big event feels. Sidian isn't sure that anybody can ever be fully ready. A lot of the time when Sidian speaks, I truly feel like he's unsure and he's trying to convince himself of things. Sidian walks Ariel down and he faces her, holding her hands. He asks, "Do you enjoy your time with me?" And Ariel says yes. Sidian asks if Ariel believes he will always do what's needed to make her happy. Ariel says she believes in him. Sidian asks Ariel if she believes he would always help her to pursue her dreams. Ariel says yes. Sidian asks Ariel if she loves him. She does. He kisses her and he says he loves her too, and he pulls out a ring and he gets on one knee. Will Ariel say yes? I think so, but we're going to see. That scene cuts off, and next up is Marcus. He comes to Janae's place to see how the meeting with his wives went. Marcus wants to know how Janae feels about it and how she feels about his wives. Marcus brings some wine, and of course, he opens it right away. He wants to know how it went, and Janae says, "It was interesting." She says now, having met Taryn in India, she won't say that they have convinced her that a polygamous relationship is a good thing for her. They have just made her see a different side. They have made Janae see a good side to polygamy. But Janae isn't persuaded by that. Marcus wants to know how Janae feels about his wives and how she feels like that piece of it went. He wants to know if his wives are people Janae would have drinks with again. Janae says the energy was cool, but it was still awkward. India expressed that she doesn't like certain things about bringing another person into the picture. She says, India said she wasn't happy about the sex being less and having less days with Marcus. Marcus points out that was also a concern of Janae's. It wasn't just the sexual part, Janae says. It's more of an emotional and physical support of wanting your man there every night. He says India came at it the same way Marcus did. The picture was painted of how good the situation is of having multiple people in one household with sharing responsibilities. Janae says India was Marcus's spokeswoman. It seems as if she was just trying to sell Janae on the lifestyle, and Taryn was more subtle. She just went with the flow. Janae guesses maybe Taryn is the vet in all this. Marcus asks Janae if they vibe, and they are still clicking. Does she feel like he can provide to her what she feels like she needs? Then he suggests that they should continue to date, and they should make sure that's the case before they move further, but they should still be continuing to date because he isn't asking her to live in the house with his wives yet. But if it's something she can't come to grips with, all Marcus asks is that she tell him before he wastes a lot of his time and money. He wants to know as soon as Janae knows for sure if it can be. Janae says Marcus has made it extremely clear for them to move forward and be intimate that he needs for everyone to feel comfortable with one another. Janae thinks her being here and tonight happening is opening up a door, but her biggest fear is if she doesn't want to move forward in that way, it may potentially end things with Marcus, just because she isn't willing to enter into the family dynamic. Marcus asks if Janae said she would have drinks with his wives again, and Janae says yes. And Marcus cuts her off. He says that's all he needed to know. This feels like a disgusting sales pitch. Marcus says when he wants something, professionally or personally, with everything in life, when he wants something, he's going to try to get it. Everything is about what Marcus wants. Janae isn't an achievement or an object or a trophy to try and get. And the way he talks about getting it, whatever he wants, is gross. He doesn't seem to actually care for Janae in a deep way, in my opinion. He wants to achieve getting her. It's not about her or her feelings or what she wants. This is all about trying to sell Janae, not because he cares for Janae deeply or because it's in her best interest necessarily, but just because he wants her, and that's gross. Marcus says, as of right now, he wants Janae, and they will see what happens. Marcus tells Janae he doesn't hear that this is a hard no for her yet. Marcus wants to know if Janae has told him a hard no and he missed it. If Janae allows this weasel to manipulate her and sell her like he would sell a lemon on a used car lot, it will be so sad. Janae feels like she needs to be around more. She needs to see how this plays out, and she needs to see how everything flows and how everyone functions within this situation before she could even ever say a polygamous relationship is a go for her. Janae tells Marcus she needs more time to process this. In the end, I really don't think that Janae will say yes to this. I think she's probably getting a TLC paycheck, but I don't think she's serious about polygamy. I think she's just being manipulated with sales tactics at this point, in my opinion, and she's probably getting a little paycheck. Back to Brazil, to the Merrifields, Garrick, Danielle, Roberta, and the translator are going around Rio de Janeiro, and Roberta is taking everyone on a tour. Danielle says it's really exciting to see the places Roberta went when she was growing up. Garrick says Roberta has never really sent them any videos or pics of anywhere she has lived or grown up, so it's seeing it for the first time. Roberta is excited to show the Merrifields the school she went to and the neighborhood she grew up in. Roberta shows them an area with rundown houses close to the area where she was born. The translator says there are a lot of slums in Rio. It's actually mostly slums, and it's very different from the area where the Airbnb is. Roberta points out the neighborhood where she was born. Danielle says, as they are seeing where Roberta grew up, it's shocking. She says Roberta has told them about the area and the condition of things, but actually seeing it and realizing how bad it is, it's definitely shocking. Garrick says it's more poor than what they imagined or even thought. Roberta says her cousin Milan has a similar house. Garrick says there must be a lot of poverty there, and the translator says yes, there's a lot of richness and a lot of poverty in close proximity, and the rich and the poor are so divided. Roberta says there's a lot of police activity here because of the war on drugs, and she says it's a dangerous place now. Danielle says driving through these neighborhoods and areas where Roberta grew up, it's sad. Danielle says seeing all of this, Roberta always tends to have a positive attitude, no matter what is going on, and it's pretty amazing that Roberta turned out the way she did. Danielle asks Roberta if when she was young, it was safe to walk on the streets. Danielle mentions that she grew up in a small town, so it was safe. You could play with your friends outside, you could walk around without your parents or without supervision. Roberta says when she was little, it was fine in the city of Rio de Janeiro. It was a better place to live. It was a much safer place. It was quiet and they were able to play in the street growing up. Roberta used to play hide and seek on the street with her friends. It was very quiet back then. But nowadays, she says children have to be kept at home and they usually just play electronic games, unfortunately, in order to keep them safe. Roberta points out her school. Roberta says it was a very special day for her because she was able to take Garrick and Danielle to some very special places to her. They got to see her school, her first school, her neighborhood, and the maternity hospital where Roberta was born. They even got to see the restaurant Roberta used to go to with her father. Roberta and her father were very, very close, so it took her back years taking this tour. Roberta is teary-eyed as she explains that it's very special to her because her father would pick her up, and those were the best days they spent together. Garrick says seeing how poor it is in Brazil and driving around, it makes Garrick understand Roberta's money situation being so poor. Danielle thinks it makes them understand better why it's so hard for Roberta to get a job in that area and the state of things, and it helps them realize more of Roberta's struggles. Next up are the Davis family. Nick, April, and Jennifer are looking at homes. They want an upgrade. Nick comes all dressed up in an overcoat with an absolutely ridiculous hat on. I think Nick wants to look like a slick businessman in front of the real estate agent. Nick explains with all the growth going on in their household, one thing that they have wanted to tackle is getting a bigger home. There isn't enough space where they live right now, especially not with the new baby coming along and the potential of adding another sister wife. Realtor wants to know what the Davises are looking for. Nick looks absolutely ridiculous in his overcoat and top hat. He looks like he's play acting the role of a pimp with that outfit on. He doesn't look good, in my opinion. Nick explains that they are looking to expand their family, and he explains in addition to expecting a little one, they are also bringing on another wife. The realtor doesn't give a fuck what their dynamic is. He just wants to know the basics, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms they want, what their price range is, what are their deal breakers. Nick thinks he looks like the man telling the realtor the 411, like, look how many wives I got. You should see the way the realtor looks at Nick when Nick unnecessarily volunteers this information. The realtor just says, okay, with a what the fuck look on his face. He says in his 5 years of experience in doing real estate, he has never come across a family that practices polygamy. He was a bit surprised meeting the family, and he says, they walk up and maybe you're thinking it's a little sister, but it's actually a sister wife, so it was a bit of a shock. April likes the house. As soon as they walk in, she says it feels spacious. The house is 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. It's 2,500 square feet above ground with a 1,000 square foot basement that they can convert into more living space. April wants to have a big family. She wants more sister wives and 3 or 4 kids at least. To do that, they need a bigger house. April thinks the master is a little small, and Nick agrees. April says the reason that she says that is the bed that she wanted to get them, that they will all be sleeping in since they're all going to sleep in one bed. That bed is 12 feet wide, and April wants to make sure they have room at least to have nightstands on each side of that bed. Jen points out there would potentially be 5 people in the bed too. April agrees, and she says down the line there could always be another person, and it's the biggest bed you can buy unless you get custom-made bed. Nick agrees they need a master with some space. April wonders if Danielle would also want to have her own room. Nick hasn't considered asking yet, but Jen thinks they all need some personal space. Nick thinks they should at least give Danielle the choice. April says they obviously want Danielle to move in with them. April knows that they have all been talking about proposing to Danielle. So April thinks it would be most appropriate if they propose before asking Danielle to move in. April thinks Danielle would be ready to move in, and April is also ready for Danielle to move in. April thinks Danielle is at a point where she is solid enough to move in with them. Jennifer suggests that they should get Danielle a ring. Whose money will buy the ring? It sure isn't Nick's money, since Nick is jobless and his women support him as he stays at home. So basically, Nick's wives will be buying Danielle's ring, just like Nick's wives will pay for his new house too. Jennifer wants Danielle to feel like this new house is her house too. so Danielle can be engaged and get the house together with all of them, so she is just as much a part of it. Nick thinks that will have a whole different feel. April thinks having that official proposal will make Danielle feel closer to them and their baby girl. Nick bends over to talk to Jen's belly. He says he thought he was just coming to look at a house, but apparently he's getting ready to propose to her other mom. Nick loves Danielle very much. He says he is crazy about her, and he thinks she is wonderful. So the idea of making Danielle a Davis and bringing her into the family, he is definitely excited about it. April tells Nick the real question is he ready for this? New baby, new wife, new house? April says it's like a whole new life. Nick says until Danielle says yes and she lets them place a ring on her finger, until that happens, Nick doesn't want to let himself get too overjoyed at the idea of Danielle joining the family. Nick tells the realtor the amount of space is good in the house, but April points out they need a much larger master bedroom for their 12-foot bed to accommodate all of them. April tells the realtor she knows she never told him that piece of information, but she clarifies they will have a 12-foot wide bed when they move into the new house. So the master has to be able to accommodate that. The realtor says he has never had a client ever ask for a 12-foot wide bed. He gets a lot of women who ask for walk-in closets as big as a house. He gets men who want a man cave, but he has never had them say, hey, we want a 12-foot wide bed so that we can all sleep together. The realtor jokes with them that maybe they can just put the 12-foot wide bed in the living room. Jennifer says the bedroom will need to be big enough to fit that bed that's big enough for all of them. So looking at this house, it just might not be large enough. April says it's a deal breaker. Nick insists this is something they have to make sure they get. The realtor has a few more houses to show the Davises, so they will keep the search going. Next up are the Joneses. Will Ariel say yes? Ariel starts crying when Sidian gets on one knee, and she asks Sidian if he is serious, and she says, of course. Sidian feels amazing, like a huge burden has been lifted, and a whole new, awesome chapter of his life has just started. Ariel says it feels very overwhelming personally. She's at a loss for words. Sidian pours champagne at the table that's set up. Ariel asks if Sidian has a speech prepared, and there's no speech. He said everything he wanted to say. They cheers to you and me as the sun sets in the background. Ariel doesn't care that things are moving fast. She is just really looking forward to whatever comes next. And she is very excited to become a sister wife to Tasha. And she is really excited for what life has in store for them. Sidian wants to tell Tasha right away, and Ariel is super excited to call her. They FaceTime Tasha. Ariel shows her the ring on her finger. Sidian had to show Tasha right away. Ariel is in tears during the call, and Tasha cries too. Sidian says by marrying Ariel, he feels like he's bringing Tasha's best friend home. And Sidian can't wait to see how their relationship evolves. Sidian says he and Tasha have gone through a multi-year long process of finding a sister wife, and it's had a lot of ups and downs, but Ariel was very special in the sense that she was always there in the background. I think of all the couples, Tasha, Sidian, and Ariel have the most chance for success. Although I will say, I think regardless of how long you develop a relationship with someone long distance, just knowing them in person for 4 days isn't enough time to decide to marry someone. You still really haven't seen them mask off or at their worst, under stress, under pressure, in good times and bad yet. But I think Tasha seems to want this lifestyle, and Sidian too. And I'm sure Sidian likes the sexual variety, but I don't think it's mainly about sex for him, if at all. I think Sidian is the only one interested in really doing this to have a family and a support system. His main priority isn't sex at all, and I think Tasha and Ariel already have a very deep friendship even before Sidian. So I think they could work. They have the most chance of success. And Sidian isn't doing this as a midlife crisis or because he loves cake. I think everyone's intentions in this relationship are in the right place. And of all the couples, the way Sidian and Tasha handle finding a potential sister wife, and the way Tasha and Sidian always make sure to be on the same page, I think it bodes well. I think if Tasha ever said no to proceeding with this, Sidian prioritizes Tasha and he would pump the brakes. And that's why it works out. This isn't being done out of selfishness. This is being done, Sidian is doing this, and it's not about sex or about selfishness or ego. So I could really see this working potentially because it seems everyone really has the right intentions. Next up are the Merrifields. Roberta's mom is coming today, and Danielle is nervous about seeing Roberta's mom and having that talk because she knows Roberta and her mom have only had each other, and Danielle knows it's going to be really hard for Roberta's mom to realize that Roberta is going to have to leave. And Roberta and her mom aren't going to be able to see each other in person for 6 months. Danielle says once Roberta comes to the U.S., she and Garrick have 90 days to legally get married. And once they are legally married, the immigration lawyer can then file Roberta's adjustment of status papers. Roberta can't leave the U.S. during that time till it's finalized. And the lawyer estimates that takes about 6 months. Roberta's mom comes and she tells Danielle she is beautiful. She calls Garrick her son, her love, and her darling. And she says, long time no see. She says it's good to see Garrick and that he's handsome. She tells Garrick she loves him. Roberta's mom hugs her daughter and she calls her her princess. Garrick in this scene has a light shirt on and his nipples are sticking out and it's so obvious. In my opinion, it's just not a good look. Roberta is apprehensive for the conversation that the four of them will have with her mom. She says they're going to have to plan today the date of her going to the U.S. because they have already extended this too much. Roberta says because her mom is a very honest person and she expects what she expects, she will speak up. So Roberta is nervous. Roberta asks her mom how she feels about seeing Garrick and Danielle after so long. Roberta's mom says she feels like they are her family. Danielle had a lot of doubts before they left Colorado, wondering if Roberta was actually going to come to the States. But seeing Roberta has definitely given her a relief that Roberta is actually coming. Roberta asks her mom, how are you feeling knowing that I'm leaving for the U.S.? And her mom sighs and she says, that's a tough one. She said she's anxious and nervous and she thinks it's too quick. Roberta's mom, Ilka, goes on that for her, Roberta going to live in the U.S. permanently is difficult because she's going to miss her very much because she is always very close to her and the two of them are always very united. It's very hard for her, but she's asking God to calm her down. She says she will pray all the time and she wants to stay in touch by telephone to make the months pass faster because it's going to be really hard for her. Roberta's mom says it's always just the two of them. They're very united and Roberta is crying. Eric, of course, is crying too. Her mom says because they are united, that's why she wants Roberta to be there in the U.S. and here in Brazil. But what's important is Roberta and Garrick and Danielle's happiness, she says. Her mom says she is going to have to take lots of sedatives. She says she came from one family, not polygamy. And she never accepted that. She never wished for that, but everything is changed. There are no more quotation marks. She came to accept the lifestyle for her daughter's happiness, but she doesn't accept it for herself. She wants Garrick to treat her daughter well since she is going to another country. She wants Garrick to treat Roberta like he is treating her here in Brazil, even when Roberta is in the U.S. She says she is putting all of her trust in Garrick and Danielle too, and she asks them if they understand. She says that will be fine and she will be very happy if Garrick and Danielle treat Roberta well. Garrick, in tears, says, "Well, Mom, I love her like I love a daughter or a son. We're family. You're my mom." He says it means so much to him as he's in tears, and Danielle cries too. Garrick says he is definitely seeing Ilka give the blessing and the support for Roberta to be with them in Colorado, and that's important to him. And it definitely shows that Ilka is supporting all of what Roberta has promised. In tears, Danielle says she promises to be a good sister to Roberta and that her home is Roberta's home and that she will never make Roberta feel sad and she will always strive to be the best for Roberta. Danielle says she knows Roberta is making a big sacrifice, but she will be very loved. Roberta says for her, moving to the U.S. is a game changer. She'll be surrounded with a lot of love with Garrick and Danielle. But on the other hand, it makes her sad because she's going to have to leave her mom. Roberta tells her mom that she loves her a lot and that she is only doing it this way because there is no other way. Roberta told her mom about the sacrifice Garrick and Danielle both made by Danielle getting a divorce just so Roberta could join the family. And she says now it's time for her to make a sacrifice, even though she will miss her mom and she loves her mom so much. Danielle thinks they are all on the same page and that mom realizes that Roberta is going to have to leave sooner than she had hoped, but that Roberta's mom wants to see Roberta happy. And Danielle feels happy that Roberta's mom wants that for Roberta. Garrick kisses Ilka's hand. I'd be wanting the Purell immediately. Next time on Seeking Sister Wife, Roberta tells Danielle to be honest. She tells Roberta she thought her husband said that she was better and that she was comfortable with them dating a potential third sister wife. And Roberta says that's not true. India, Marcus, and Taryn are talking, and India tells him now he is not responsive and she doesn't have his location. So it's never a thing of distrust, it's more so of worry. Marcus insists India had his location. India says Marcus went to go see Janae and he didn't come home, so she is pissed. She tells him she doesn't have his location, and Marcus insists she does have the location. India says no, she doesn't, and Marcus tells India, then there is something going on with your phone, so that's why she can't get the location. India says, so does that mean I do or don't have your location if I can't see it? And Marcus wants to make clear that he has given his location, and Taryn has his location too. India says Marcus can make it clear, asks if she should have woken up Taryn in the middle of the night to ask her where Marcus is. Listen, Marcus is a bullshit artist. He knows he didn't send his location. He knows he planned on getting cake that night, whether India approves of it or not. So he is making the bullshit excuse that India's phone conveniently must be broken. And he tries to make her feel stupid by saying Taryn has his location. She could just ask India, knowing it was the middle of the night, knowing he was getting sex that wasn't approved of, and that he's disrespecting India. Marcus, in my opinion, just wants sex, period. And he wants to try and keep Taryn in India, probably because of child support and wanting a permanent base to run his house to go back to while getting it in any way he can. Marcus doesn't care if India is okay with him having sex or not. Marcus is going to do it anyways, and then he'll talk his way out of it later. He doesn't respect India. He is just stringing everything along to have his cake and eat it too. For Marcus, everything boils down to sex and ego, in my opinion. Steve asks his son how he feels about the idea of meeting April. He isn't feeling anything, he says. He asks Steve how old April is, and Steve tells his son she is 21. So she's just a couple years older than his son. His son has his arm crossed, so he doesn't feel very open about this at all. He asks, 21 in shock? And Steve says, yeah. His son laughs and says, okay. April and Jennifer are putting on makeup. And April says, I wonder how she will react. And Jennifer says, I know. Jennifer reveals tonight we are going to propose to Danielle. Nick is in a hideous suit with a big chain and a shiny burgundy button-up top. And Jen is doing very heavy eye makeup on him. For what reason, I don't know. April says she has mixed feelings. She's nervous. She's excited. It looks like they have a fancy table set up. Danielle looks like she is going to cry in a rejection type of way. So we'll see how it goes. Personally, I'm rooting for her to say no and not make the biggest mistake she has ever made in her life at 22 years old. But that's just my opinion. That does it for this episode. To my YouTube viewers, please like and subscribe. And if you like, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'll see you this week for the next episode of Book Club on Chapter 9 on Mary, and for the next episode of my Sister Wives Rewatch on Season 16, Episode 4, Sister and Wives. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Bye.